Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Gauda Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Could I have a book? A book. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10, text number 16. Okay. Kastvang nigudhash charasi dvijanam bibharshi sutrang katamo vadutaha kasyasi kutratya ihapi kasmat kshemaya nashched asi nota shuklaha kastvam nigudash charasi dvijanam bibharshi sutram katamo vadutaha kasyasi kutratya ihapi kasmat kshemaya naschedasi nota shuklaha kastvam nigudhash charasi dvijanam bibharshi sutram katamo vadutaha kasyasi kutratya ihapi kasmat kshemaya naschedasi nota shuklaha kastvam nigudhash charasi dvijanam bibharshi sutram katamo vadutaha kasyasi kutratya ihapi kasmat kshemaya naschedasi nota shuklaha Anybody else? Prakash? Anand? Oh, okay. Sorry. Would anybody else like to chant? Daniel? Anybody on Zoom?
Astam nigudas charasi dijanam vimasi shutram katama baduta kashashi kutratya ihapi kasmat Mayo Nashed Ashinata Sukla.
Thank you very much, Tavas. Okay. Katvam. Who are you? Nigudaha. Very much covered. Charasi. You move in this world. Dvijana. Among the brahmanas or saintly persons. Bibharshi, you also wear. Sutram, the sacred thread belonging to the first class brahmanas. Katamaha, which. Abadhutaha, highly elevated person. Kasya asi, whose are you? Whose disciple or son are you? Kutratyaha, from where? Iha api, here in this place. Kasmat, for what purpose? Kshemaya, for the benefit. Naha, of us. Chet, if. Asi, you are. Nauta, or not. Shuklaha, the personality of the pure mode of goodness, Kapiladev. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. King Rahugana said, O Brahmana, you appear to be moving in this world very much covered and unknown to others. Who are you? Are you a learned Brahmana and saintly person? I see that you are wearing a sacred thread. Are you one of those exalted, liberated saints, such as Dattatreya and other highly advanced learned scholars? May I ask whose disciple you are? Where do you live? Why have you come to this place? Is your mission in coming here to do good for us? Please let me know who you are. Purport. Maharaj Rahugana was very anxious to receive further enlightenment in Vedic knowledge because he could understand that Jada Bharat belonged to a Brahmana family, either by disciplic succession or by birth in a Brahmana dynasty. As stated in the Vedas, tad vigyanartham sagurum eva bhagachet. Rahugana was accepting Jada Bharat as a guru, but a guru must prove his position, not only by wearing a sacred thread, but by advancing knowledge in spiritual life. It is also significant that Rahugana asked Jada Bharat which family he belonged to. There are two types of families, one according to dynasty and the other according to disciplic succession. In either way, one can be enlightened. The word Shuklaha refers to a person in the mode of goodness. If one wants to receive spiritual knowledge, he must approach a bona fide Brahmana guru, either in the disciplic succession or in a family of learned Brahmanas. Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha shri chaitanya manobhishtam sthapitam yena bhutale svayam rupakadamayam dharati svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utak Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm going to speak a little bit on the qualifications and activities of pure devotees and of pure devotee gurus. So in this verse, well, I guess in the verses previous to this, in this general situation, Jada Bharata has now revealed himself to be a self-realized soul. He's finally spoken after King Rahugana chastised him. So now this is also going to begin his instructing Maharaj Rahugana about the philosophy of Bhagavat Dharma. And so in this verse, we see that Maharaj Rahugana, he's a pious king, and it appears, like Prabhupada says in the purport, that he wants to be instructed. He feels bad, he feels remorseful for chastising Jada Bharata. And so now he wants to be instructed. He's surrendering unto Jada Bharata. And this is a good desire. It's a good desire to be instructed. Because approaching the spiritual master, it's one of the first steps in spiritual life. Practically, it is the first step in spiritual life. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidhi pranipatena, that we should pariprashnena sevaya, upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha, that we should learn the absolute truth by approaching a spiritual master, surrendering unto him, inquiring from him, rendering service unto him. And in this way, the self-realized souls, that it can impart knowledge unto us because they themselves have seen the truth. The principle is there that we can't approach, even begin to approach Krishna on our own. Because what do we know about Krishna? What can we know about Krishna? I mean, we're so, of course, intrinsically, the spirit soul, we have knowledge of Krishna. The spirit soul is full of knowledge. But due to all the filters and the contamination that is covering the spirit soul, it's extremely difficult to access that knowledge, practically impossible. So by the purifying process of diksha, taking initiation from the spiritual master, and by serving the guru, there's this verse that we recite every morning, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasada. We can get, by the mercy of the spiritual master, we can get the mercy of Krishna, and then, of course, from that all success comes. So then the question arises, of course, who is a guru? Who's qualified to be a guru? Well, it may be very difficult to understand. Certainly King Rahugana couldn't understand it, because otherwise he, of course, wouldn't have chastised Jada Bharata in such a way, because he would have understood that actually he is a self-realized soul. And like it's mentioned in this purport, Prabhupada's mentioning that a guru is not just somebody who wears a sacred thread or who wears, saffron cloth and smiles very nicely and speaks very sweet words. A guru is actually, a real guru means a pure devotee of Krishna, a pure devotee of God. Somebody who's conversant with the science of Krishna consciousness, who's received the mercy of Krishna, and has fully reawakened and is acting in their original position as a servant of Krishna. So this means that one has to have realization. It's not just that one can, like Balaram was mentioning in a class some time ago, that we shouldn't just learn the facts and figures of Krishna consciousness. We should actually have a transformation of the heart. And so a real guru, real pure devotee, means one who has had that transformation of heart and can now bestow it onto others. But this largely can't be understood by externals, and we're seeing that practically in this pastime. There's also another pastime with Prabhupada. Radha Govinda Maharaj, one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, sannyasi disciples, he first saw Prabhupada at in Benares. He first saw Prabhupada speaking in Benares, But somehow or other, he was either too far back or he couldn't properly see Prabhupada. There were so many people there, and he didn't really know how Prabhupada looked, but he heard the lecture in Hindi, and he really liked it. He really appreciated Prabhupada's realization. He appreciated Prabhupada's presentation of the philosophy. And so he actually asked a question to Prabhupada without being able to see him during the lecture. And he said, "So what's your plan after Benares?" After he asked the question, he asked this. And Prabhupada said, "Well, I'm going to Gorakhpur." And so he said, "Okay." And so he went to Gorakhpur next time to see, or whenever Prabhupada went, to see Prabhupada. And so wherever Prabhupada was speaking, I'm not sure exactly, but he went there, and he saw a man there, and he asked him, he said, "Where is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami?" And this man said, Why do you want to meet with him?" And so this man, so Radha Govinda Maharaj said, "Well, he's a pure devotee. He's my guru. He's a pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya." And so this man then inquired further. He said, "Who's Lord Chaitanya?" And he says, "Well, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead." And this man further inquired. He said, "Well, why do you accept him as Krishna?" And he said, "Well, I read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the previous acharyas have said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna." And so this man, then he says, no, he's not Krishna. He's not Krishna. And Radha Govinda Maharaj just kind of started arguing. He goes, "No, he's Krishna himself." And he goes, no, he's a devotee of Krishna. He's not Krishna." And he says, and then Radha Govinda Maharaj says to this man, he says, "You rascal, just keep quiet. Just don't speak anymore. You're just being very offensive." And so then a few moments later, some devotees came in, some white devotees, and they paid obeisances to this man. And he realized that this man was Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And so he said to Prabhupada, "I'm so sorry. I've offended you. I spoke very strongly. I'm very sorry." And Prabhupada said, "No, I'm actually very pleased with the way you spoke." Yeah, he laughed. He laughed, and he said, "No, I'm very pleased with the way you spoke. You chastised me," he said. And so, it's very difficult to see pure devotees. It's almost actually impossible with our external mind and senses. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, "Jangra chitte Krishna prema koreya udaya, tangra vakya kriya mudra vigya hena bujhaya," that even the most learned man, materially speaking, they can understand the activities and the symptoms of a person who's situated in pure love for Krishna. Because pure devotees, they're situated on the platform of sadhya. They're in perfection. They have nothing to gain by their activities anymore. They're perfectly situated on the spiritual platform. So their consciousness is no longer contaminated or influenced or limited by the external energy of the Lord. They're always absorbed in reciprocation with Krishna, and they're acting in their original relationship. And so they don't have to follow rules and regulations like we do. Of course they do, for an example, but sometimes their activities may be extremely bewildering, actually, for material eyes, for one who doesn't have spiritual vision. Both in the realm of devotional service, in terms of not following rules and regulations. They don't have to follow rules and regulations of devotional service, necessarily. They also don't generally follow the rules and regulations of the social order, of society. And we see this also practically in the example of Jada himself. His whole life he spent covered. His brothers didn't recognize him. They fed him, burnt rice stuck to the bottom of the pot, and they abused him. And the dacoits, took him, tried to kill him, thinking he was some kind of man animal. And the palanquin carriers, the palanquin carriers, they thought, oh, he's just labor, free labor, so we'll take him and engage him. And also Jada Bharata's father, 2 lives ago, Rishabhadev. Rishabhadev is also complete avadut. A devotee is somebody who's completely situated on the spiritual platform, completely outside of external consciousness. I mean, Rishabhadev was walking around, he was wandering around the kingdom like naked, like a madman, and you know, he'd roll around in his own stool and urine so that people would stay away from him, so that he could just simply focus on his reciprocation with Krishna internally. And so there's so many examples in the Bhagavatam, but then also more recent examples within our Gaudiya Sampradaya. One such example that comes to mind is Vamsidas Babaji. Vamsidas Babaji was a pure devotee of Krishna, and he lived in Navadvip. He had his kutir in Navadvip, and externally he appeared as a complete madman, and many people thought he was. He acted very erratically. There was no telling when he would. You couldn't keep up with him. There was no telling when he would get going or when he would stop. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, start cooking for his deities, and then just go back to there was no telling when he would start or stop. And he had these deities of Gaur Nitai deities. And he had a very special relationship with his deities. People would come, and they'd bring bhoga for him to offer to his deities. Nice vegetables and so on, and fruits. And he would say, no, this Gaur Nitai won't eat this. He said, please take it away. And then he'd go to the market, and he'd take the thrown out rotten vegetables, and he'd cook that. Also there were instances where, and of course we can't even possibly think of imitating this, but he would chastise his deities actually. One time he had to go somewhere, he left somewhere, and so he said to his deities, he said, Gaur Nitai, okay, you're in charge while I'm gone. You please watch my things and make sure that nobody takes them. And he got back, and somehow or other he noticed, I think maybe something was stolen, or he noticed something was gone. And he said, I told you to watch over my stuff. And he said, and you didn't. And he said, I'm not going to feed you anymore. So he stopped feeding his deities. So of course these are extremely elevated reciprocations with the Lord. So you absolutely cannot be imitated whatsoever. And just one more, there was one instance. This is just another display of his internal meditation. Actually, I have another one after this, which is also good. But he was collecting water from the Yamuna, and he was very old. In the early 40s, he was he was in his 90s. Nobody knows exactly how old he was, and he was collecting water, and due to his old age, he slipped and he fell. And there were some devotees nearby, and they heard him speaking, they heard him talking, and there was nobody else with him. And he said, okay, well you just go on and you bring water for bathing Krishna. As if he was talking, maybe he was collecting water with some gopis or something like that. And then a few moments later, he says, you get out of here. He says, you get out of here, Krishna. They already fed you in Vrindavan, so why should I cook for you here? And he said, they already fed you date gur and sweet rice in Vrindavan, so why should I feed you here? And the devotees found out later that at that particular time at the Radharamana temple in Vrindavan, they had offered Krishna date gur and sweet rice. So he was an extremely elevated soul. And then just one more. One time he was walking with some devotees in Navadvip, and he saw a train crossing across a bridge, and just all of a sudden, somehow or other, it reminded him of Krishna, and he started yelling, "Rasamandala, Rasamandala!" And he says, "Srimati Radharani, what are you doing?" So who knows? Who knows what? Yeah. So eventually, actually, Bhaktisiddhanta would go there and visit him with his disciples, and eventually whenever he would go and visit with his disciples, he would just tell them, just sit and stay quiet and don't say anything and don't try to understand. You'll just make offenses. But eventually, he told his disciples, just don't go visit him, because you'll just misunderstand. You'll create offenses. So yeah, to try to understand devotees or pure devotees at face value is completely futile. It's if you try to do it, you'll just fail utterly. You'll just utterly fail their external activities, and what to speak of their internal realizations. Gorkishore Das Babaji is another example. Gorkishore Das Babaji wanted, when he left his body, he wanted his disciples to drag him through Navadvip. Of course, Bhaktisiddhanta, his foremost disciple, they actually wanted to do this. They actually wanted to drag his transcendental form through the dust of Navadvip. That's what he said. They actually, and his disciples actually wanted to do it, but Bhakti said, huh? Oh yeah. So yeah, some Babajis. Oh yeah, Bhakti. Okay, yeah, some Babajis they actually wanted to do this, but Bhaktisiddhanta, being his disciple, his very intimate disciple, he understood this is just his humility, and actually to do this would actually be a great offense. I mean, his form is completely transcendental. And so this is also another point, is that pure devotees, they have incredible humility. You read the songs of the Vaishnava acharyas. You know, Krishnadas Kaviraj, he's saying in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you know, anybody who hears my name loses all the results of his pious activities, and anybody who speaks my name immediately becomes sinful. And he's actually feeling that way. It's not just that he's saying this as an expression of some kind of fake humility. He's actually feeling this way. He's genuinely feeling that anybody who speaks my name becomes sinful. It's almost like superhuman humility. It's completely incomprehensible to us. And Narottam Das Thakur, he's praying to Krishna in his Prema Bhakti Chandrika. He's saying, I'm the most fallen person in the entire universe, so please kindly rescue me and be celebrated as Narottam Pavana, the savior of Narottam. He's thinking that that he's so fallen that Krishna will be glorified for saving him, because it's such an amazing feat. And then also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that song, Amara Jivana. That song he's so humble in that song. I mean, he's saying that, that he's an impious sinner, that he's never hesitated to commit any sinful activity, that he's completely selfish, and that he's remorseful when he sees other people happy, and that he's a perpetual liar, and that he never remembers Krishna. He's completely wasted his life. I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a completely pure devotee. Of course, these are just expressions of his humility. But the pure devotees are extremely humble. And so oftentimes as a result of this humility, it's very, and amongst other things, of course, too, but it's very difficult to see them, because sometimes they may just, kind of fade into the background. So the pure devotees, they have to reveal themselves to us. We can't possibly think of understanding them with our mind and senses. It's completely impossible. There's that saying, it takes one to know one. Like when you're, in elementary school and somebody insults you, hey, you're a real idiot. And I say, oh yeah, well, it takes one to know one, So, but similarly, without being blessed, without receiving the mercy of the pure devotees, and having them bestow spiritual vision unto us, without that spiritual vision, practically it's extremely difficult to see a pure devotee, to understand a pure devotee. But Prabhupada does say in the Nectar of Instruction, I'll just read a little excerpt. He says, when a person realizes himself to be an eternal servitor of Krishna, he loses interest in everything but Krishna's service. Always thinking of Krishna, devising means by which to spread the holy name of Krishna, he understands that his only business is in spreading the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Such a person is to be recognized as an Uttama Adhikari, and his association should immediately be accepted according to the 6 processes, Dadati, Pratikritnati, Kritnati, the 6 loving exchanges. One who is always absorbed in trying to spread Krishna consciousness and trying to deliver the fallen conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya. Those people who are always plotting, who are always trying to figure out new ways, trying to innovate preaching, who are always absorbed in the Sankirtan movement. This is a particular definition or particular standard of a pure devotee. So one should immediately seek out their association and try to serve them in whatever way possible. So it's a good way to see who's qualified. And so one might say, okay, well, this doesn't really sound like what you were just talking about. Vamsidas Babaji, he's sitting in one place, constantly chanting. Gorkishore Das Babaji, same thing. He's sitting in one place, he's chanting, absorbed internally. But factually, these Babajis within our line, they're always speaking about Krishna. Vamsidas Babaji, another thing about him is that every time everything reminded him of Krishna. There was example, like somebody would say something like government. They would talk about the government, and he would say, Govardhan. He would say, Govardhan Adari, and he would start, go into ecstasy. He would, think he would hear government, and he'd think Govardhan. So, if somebody happens to walk by, if somebody happens to, see them or happens to speak to them, they're always reminded of Krishna. So this is preaching. This is preaching, no doubt. And just by their presence also, they inspire the preachers. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, he was on a boat, on a steamship from Kolkata. He was going somewhere, I forget exactly where. And one man knew him, and he went to him and he says, your guru, Gorkishore Das Babaji, he's he sits in Navadweep and he's always chanting and he's absorbed internally, stays in one place. He's not doing all this traveling and speaking engagements and so many things like that. And he says, but you are. He says there seems to be some kind of contradiction there. That that you're doing all of this activity. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he said, that actually there's no contradiction because our purpose is the same. He says, just like this steamship, he said, you're only seeing the paddle, but you're not seeing the actual, the motor, the generator, which is moving the paddle. He says, Gorkishore Das Babaji is powering all of my preaching. Gorkishore Das Babaji, just like this steamship is powered by a paddle, which is powered by a battery, Gorkishore Das Babaji is my battery. So just by their presence, the pure devotees who are Bhajananandis. There's Bhajananandis and Goshtyanandis. Bhajananandis are constantly absorbed in internal bhajan, in their internal reciprocation with Krishna. They sit in one place, they chant, etc. But the Goshtyanandis, are those who try to go out and save the fallen conditioned souls, who try to spread Krishna consciousness for the good fortune, for the benefit of people at large. And Prabhupada says that the ideal is a Bhajananandi who likes to preach. So both things are there. There's both sides. And so this pastime with Bhaktisiddhanta also brings up another aspect or another qualification of being a guru, that one must be a servant of his guru. A bona fide guru is always, their glory is that they are a pure representative of their own spiritual master. This is why Maharaj Rahugana, he says, may I ask whose disciple you are? He asks, what family are you from? Prabhupada, of course, mentions in the purport that family can also mean the sampradaya, the guru parampara. Because this guru parampara, it's the source of empowerment for any of us, for anybody who's making some endeavor in spiritual life. Because it's like the supply chain of Krishna's mercy. Krishna, he speaks to Brahma, Brahma speaks to Narada, and it goes down all the way to, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gorkishore Das Babaji, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, and then to the devotees who are here now. So without the mercy, the instructions, the empowerment coming from the Guru Parampara, one can't possibly be a guru because they're disconnected from Krishna's mercy. So and this connection comes from following the instructions of the Guru Parampara, the previous acharyas of one's own spiritual master, and then also repeating their instructions without any kind of concoction or any kind of addition or any kind of subtraction, just speaking the message as it is. That's why Prabhupada, when his Bhagavad Gita translates Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this is a sign of spiritual advancement, when one can act as a transparent vaya medium, like Prabhupada says, and simply transmit the message of the previous acharyas. And any real guru, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Siddhanta, Gorky Shodas Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, any real guru will present himself as a servant of his guru. And we can better understand Srila Prabhupada, our own spiritual. We can better understand, for those, we can better understand our own spiritual masters if we're initiated by a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. In the context of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, we can better understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings within the context of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's teachings. We can better understand Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's teachings through the context of Gorky Shodas Babaji, through Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it's not that the guru, what's that saying? The guru is not an island. Is that the? Oh yeah, man is not an island. Yeah, man is not an island. So no man is an island. So similarly, no guru is an island. No guru is an island. They're always receiving mercy from their guru and from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so nowadays there's this Ritvik movement, which is trying to present Srila Prabhupada as if in isolation from his gurus, as if independent, like he's just some figure that just kind of popped up, like some Sai Baba figure or something like that. But actually Srila Prabhupada's teachings, Srila Prabhupada's books, they're only meant to be understood only within the context of his gurus, of the previous acharyas. And so, because this is the guru's function is to simply repeat and to transmit the message of Krishna as coming through the disciplic succession. And this also applies to us. It also applies to us that we have to sincerely follow the instructions and become transparent via mediums of the Guru Parampara, of the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. And we have to really take this message to heart. It's not that we should just repeat. Of course, repeating is glorious, but we should also take it to heart. We should also follow the instructions and get off the neophyte platform and actually make some real factual spiritual advancement. Because this is actually the real import of the spiritual master's instructions. The spiritual master is instructing the disciple for his benefit so that he can make spiritual advancement. So it's great if we repeat for the benefit of others, but we should also take it into our own hearts. And so, so we have to be very attentive. We have to be very attentive to the order of the spiritual master, because this is actually the proper way to relate with senior devotees, with pure devotees, with advanced devotees, is you relate to them by service and by surrender. And so in this song that we sing every morning to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Mui Savdhana Mate. Sorry, Savdhana Mate. Savdhana Mate. So it explains how the lotus feet of the spiritual master are the only way by which we can receive Kevala Bhakti, are the only way by which we can receive pure devotional service. And this line, Bando Mui Savdhana Mate, means that we should be very attentive in serving the spiritual master and listening to his instructions and his indications, because these are our life and soul. These instructions coming from the spiritual master are fit to deliver us. They're extremely fit to deliver us. And practically, in our current condition, there are only hope for deliverance. So this song goes on a few lines later. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koribo Aikya. That we should accept the instructions of the spiritual master. We should make them one with our consciousness. So we should act in such a way that everything we do is fulfilling the order of the spiritual master, is pleasing to the spiritual master. And Prabhupada is such a great example of this, and we can see the result. I mean, Prabhupada had such a difficult order from his spiritual master to come to the West, to preach Krishna consciousness, and try to save people. But he came here on cargo ship with, he had 2 heart attacks on the way. All he had was $7 worth of rupees, and he had no contacts in the U.S. And he simply prayed to his spiritual master and prayed to Krishna, make me dance. He said he prayed to Krishna, I don't know why you sent me here, but clearly I'm here, so you want me to be here. So just like a puppet in your hands, make me dance. And make me speak in such a way that they can be convinced. And like I said, just see the result. I mean, none of us this temple wouldn't be here, none of us would be here if it weren't for Srila Prabhupada's unalloyed devotion to his spiritual master and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so if we do that, if we develop an attraction to serving the Guru, if we develop Guru Bhakti, then everything comes with that, because the Guru, real Guru, is fit and able to deliver Krishna Prema, or the supreme goal of pure, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna to his disciple. He's able to transform his heart. So that's all I have on my end. Maybe if we have questions or comments or some discussion.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vijay Krishna, Dravida Prabhu is going to say something first, and then we can get to you.
Yes, I can wait. No problem.
Oh, thank you. Very nice class. Since you were analyzing the song Guru Mukha Padma Bhakta, I'd like to point out, because it's not clear from the translation that we recite every morning, which is not Prabhupada's translation, by the way. Mm-hmm. The next verse is very important to understand. Chakradandi ulaye janme janme Prabhu say, he who's given me the gift of transcendental vision, open my eyes, is my master birth after birth. And Dibya Gyan Ride Prokashito, which means that he manifests the divine knowledge in the heart, if we're ready to receive it. Which comes from the previous verse, make those words one with your mind and don't desire anything else. It all makes sense. But the next concept is not reflected in our translation. Prema bhakti yaha hoite, that knowledge, it's not that he's just emanating prema, which is true, but it's the Dibya Gyan which results in the prema bhakti. It's that divine knowledge which enables us to attain the prema bhakti, and which also destroys completely ignorance, abhijja vinashyate. And then it says the Vedas sing his glories. But that understanding that the knowledge that we've been reading is Prabhupada's book, studying here in the class, discussing all these things, and acting on the knowledge manifests, that's where the prema bhakti is going to come from. So just to make that clear.
Yeah.
Balaram once and I we were thinking of maybe trying to change that recitation so we get the actual meaning of the song.
Yeah.
But what we have is, of course, accurate, is of course uplifting, but it's not exactly what. And that's why Prabhupada, he authorized in 1977 this retranslation of this song. So it's not like someone, it's not a concoction. Just want to let you know, since you've studied that, you're focused on the song. Vijay Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dravida Prabhu.
You're on.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. Amogha Prabhu, the quote from the purport related to the verse you chose for today, 5:10:16, is the last sentence of the purport. Quote, if one wants to receive spiritual knowledge, he must approach a bona fide Brahmana Guru, either in the disciplic succession or in a family of learned Brahmanas. End quote. So my question is, approach a bona fide Brahmana Guru in what way, using what kind of etiquette? And I am asking like this because, as far as I know, and correct me if I am wrong, when Srila Prabhupada was beginning the establishment of Lord Chaitanya's movement in New York, he was approached by, I think it was a hippie or someone else, who stole his typewriter. So my question is, if I approach my bona fide Brahmana Guru with the purpose of stealing his typewriter, is it that spiritual knowledge will be bestowed by him upon me?
No. But in the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami teaches us how to relate with devotees on different platforms of realization. So I'll just read the verse. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet parnitibish bhajantamisham shushushaya bhajana vigyamananyamanya nindali shunya hridam ipsita sangalabdhya. So he says, one should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshiping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in undeviated devotional service and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So the proper way to associate with the Brahmana Guru is by service. Service to their instructions. There's two kinds of service to the Guru. There's Vani and Vapu. Vani is the instructions of the Guru, and Vapu is the physical form of the Guru. So both things are there, but ultimately Vani Seva is much more important. That's the actual real service to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master's business is to speak, and the disciple, his business is to hear and to imbibe those instructions, and then also to speak them to others. But mainly, in the role of a disciple, the disciple's business or duty is to hear and imbibe the instructions and to serve those instructions in that way. So you can't steal Prabhupada's tape recorder and become a pure devotee. Sorry.
Yes, Amogha Prabhu. Amazing, outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I just thought of something.
Yes.
I've had this little motto for some time, but I think this is the ideal answer. How to serve the spiritual master. He's most, as you pointed out, he's most eager that you serve the words. What does that mean? Very simple. You can memorize this right away, Vijay Krishna. You ready?
Yes, Prabhu, I'm ready.
Learn it, live it, give it. You learn, you imbibe the words, you you mold your life according to the words of the Guru, who's giving nothing but the Shastra, so the Shastra is the same thing. And then you give that words to others. So that's how the ideal way to, and that's how Prabhupada wanted us to serve him. So that's...
Yes, Rabida Prabhu, can you say it again?
Sure.
I'm writing it down.
Learn it, live it, give it. Learn them, live them, and give them. But it's
live it and give it.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Bhakti Daniel?
I think it's getting a little late, but
That's okay.
I guess I'll just say a comment. Wonderful class. You have a really nice way of presenting pastimes. I find it very engaging.
Hare Krishna.
So Hare Krishna.
You don't have a question?
I have a question, but
Yeah,
it's already
not
kind of 45 and.
Yeah, it's not that late. It's okay.
No? Okay. You guys okay with that? Okay. Okay. So you're talking about what was his name? The Babaji that.
Vamsidas Babaji.
Vamsidas Babaji. So you said things we couldn't conceive.
Yeah.
For a pure devotee. Then how are we supposed to serve sometimes pure devotees if we can't conceive who they are?
Yeah. Well, one thing is to serve everybody, but another thing is that you have to hear. You can also understand who is a pure devotee. I think it was Gaur Govinda Maharaj who said this. He says, "You see a sadhu with your ears." So, so also, if you hear from a person, you may not be able to understand their activities, but if you hear from them, then you can understand their qualification. Vamsidas Babaji, although he externally appeared like a madman and spoke like a madman, he actually never spoke anything which was against Shastra. Vijay Prabhupada, you have. So yeah, so that's also an important thing is to hear, and then one can understand through that.
Also, familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would tell his disciples, don't go, you can't understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, better to hear. You see the activities. Just like it said that it's very dangerous to get too close to fire, and also a pure devotee, because you can commit offenses.
Yeah.
So better to keep a distance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if I may add one thing, we have the experience in our own movement. We probably, he was staying in LA for 8 months, which is unheard of, and he was planning to stay there. But eventually, his guru's picture was upside down on the altar, and there was salt in the sweet rice and the charanamrita. And not only that, but there was an attempt to control the flow of information to Prabhupada. They were not giving him certain letters that were given. And finally, he got in touch with some trusted, devotees like Tamal Krishna Maharaj and others, and said, "Get me out of here." And and that's when he went to India. And also, Krishna was pushing him to preach in India, because he was ready to settle down in L.A. He hadn't have to worry about management. He could write, and people were coming to him. But Krishna wanted him to go, but he arranged it in that way. So that's why we have to be careful in our dealings with the pure devotees, because in neophyte stage we can easily become too familiar and commit offense and create havoc in our spiritual lives. Yeah. But just one other thing about the model of how to approach the pure devotee. We have the perfect example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Sanatana Goswami and how he approached Lord Chaitanya. With the straw in his mouth. I don't know anything. They think I'm learned. I'm like that. Very humbly and ready to hear and follow the orders. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.